Hi friends, it's Mike the Broker Builder here. Thanks so much for coming back to the channel. It means the world to me. And I wanted to do a video that was slightly different than a lot of the other home building stuff that I do and the spec home stuff. But it goes hand in hand because these are good little projects to put into your spec homes to really increase the saleability and to rise a little bit above your competition in your local market. And even if you're not a spec home builder, a great little project to put in your house. And they're pretty trendy today. But I wanted to just narrate some pictures because I think that's the best way to do it. Just can't lose the time of filming in somebody else's home, and they want the project done as soon as possible and that sort of thing. But I think this will give me the opportunity to not miss anything, and we're going to go through step by step here, and I hope that you guys are able to build your own from my direction here. So let's get it rolling. All right, the first thing you're going to do is determine how far or how deep you want your bump out to be. Now, this particular bump out is going to have a fireplace and a mantle and a really skinny TV, but everybody's situation might change there. So another thing you might want to consider is, are you going to do cabinets on the side? If you're doing cabinets on the side, you want to make sure that it's deep enough that those cabinets aren't going to sit proud of the bump, because in my opinion that just looks silly. Wouldn't really fit the standard rules of carpentry. But in any case, we're just going to have a bump here, and I think this one was maybe 10 inches. I don't remember, honestly. And so you need to be aware also of your ceiling height here. Now, the homeowner gave me the wrong ceiling height here, and I ended up getting 8-foot 2-bys, and it ended up being a couple inches too short, so I had to double up on the top and bottom plates of the tall, skinny sidewalls. I don't even know if you can see there, but if you were seeing that, just wondering what that is, that's what it was. Now, I'm just going to frame up the sidewalls like I would any other wall. And this is so skinny, 10 inches, that I really only need, 2 studs there. And so that's going to be the first step, is just framing up your sidewalls. Now, if you are lucky enough to hit a stud in the middle of the wall on one of those walls that we built, then great. You can just screw those in. But the odds are you're not going to hit a stud on the wall unless you're super lucky. So what you can do is you could use a little bit of glue, but when I do this stuff, I like to make sure that I'm not going to make it a nightmare for people to remove, ripping off drywall and things like that. So I just shoot some screws, find some that are long enough, 3.5, 4 inches. I shoot them up diagonally into the corner of the ceiling and the wall, which, again, would be the top plate of the actual wall of the house and the bottom plate behind the woodwork. I'll just shoot those diagonal, and that is enough to hold those into place. I've never had anything fail there. But if it made you feel a little better, you could put some wall anchors, one in the middle there if you wanted, on the stud of the side wall. So that's going to be your first step. And also, before I move to the next still, you're going to see up top, I've already fastened a 2x4, which would be the top plate of the front wall, not the wall of the house, but the front wall of the bump out. I already fastened that to the ceiling, and that's only because, again, I had to double them up. Normally, I just build the front wall and then screw the top plate up into the ceiling and be done with it. So that's why that's there currently. All right, friends, in this next one, you're going to see the front wall is built, and I brought it inside, and then I screwed it up into the top plate that we already fastened to the ceiling. And I don't screw anything into the floor because, again, if somebody ever rips this out, I don't want to make it a nightmare. Having it fastened into the ceiling and then into the side walls of the bump out, which was the first step, it's plenty secure. And then when you put the cladding on, or the shiplap or whatever you're going to use, stone or whatever, it's going to tie it all together even more strong. So the front wall is there, as you can see, and you'll notice that there's 2 studs kind of maybe a fourth of the way over on both sides. Now, how I determined the location of those studs is going to be the width of your fireplace. Okay? So the fireplace is going to pop in there towards the bottom, and then as you see, I'm going to frame out around there while this wall's in place. All right, let's take a look. Actually, before we do that, let's just take a quick look. I have some other photos here, and it's just a little closer look. You can see what the bottom looks like there, a little closer to the front. Then here's a little closer look at the top there, what that looks like. Okay, then the next thing I'm going to do is determine where the bottom of my fireplace is going to be, because that has to have something to set on. We're going to frame it out. So I just put a stud along the bottom there, and horizontally, as you can see. And that's where the fireplace is going to sit. That will be the bottom of the electronic fireplace. All right, now I'm going to determine where the top horizontal 2x4 is going to go, and that's going to be used to fasten the electronic fireplace in there. Now, each electronic fireplace is going to be different on the way that you fasten it and the shape of the back and things like that. So you're going to kind of have to play around with this framing a little bit, to fit your particular fireplace that you order. But I'm going to show you how that kind of sits in there for this particular one. Okay, so here you can see how this particular fireplace is built, and it just sits down onto that bottom horizontal 2x that we installed, and then leans up against the back there. And I believe this one actually had like a bracket that went onto that top piece of framing on the top of the fireplace. It had like a metal bracket, and then it kind of hung off there. I'll see if I can find a picture of that and show it to you. Okay, so there you go. That was what I attached to that top plate there, that top piece of framing for the fireplace, and then the picture before there you saw it just kind of sits down in there. So that's how this one's done. Much easier way is that if you could just screw it in from the sides, and I've had a couple like that too. This one was kind of a real pain to kind of fit in there properly and get the front frame piece to fit after all the cladding was on. But in any case, that's the way it was. Okay, and then here you see I actually put the frame on the front there because what you have to do is this. You can see there's like a frame that goes onto the front of the fireplace, and most of them have that. In fact, I've never had one that hasn't, but you got to put that frame on because you got to make sure that then there is enough room in the back for whatever cladding you're going to put on here, whether it be shiplap or stone, tile, drywall. You got to make sure there's enough room for that to go behind the frame. Last thing you want to do is get the whole thing done and then the frame, not enough room for the frame to fit. So unfortunately, I don't think I have a close-up of that. But again, I'm just testing. If you were to put your fingers behind the frame of the fireplace, you got to make sure there's 3/4 of an inch there or a little bit more. Obviously, if you have 3/4 material, I think most shiplap is 1/2 inch. But just make sure you don't skip this step and you have enough room back there. All right, next step is to add another horizontal piece, blocking if you will, for your mantle. And this step can be skipped if you're not using a solid wood mantle. I've had some customers buy them, from an online place like Amazon or Wayfair or something like that, and they're just kind of hollow. And they come with brackets and things like that, so they're not very heavy, and you probably don't need any extra support back there. But this particular mantle I did here was a piece of solid cedar from a tree that I had cut down on a job site. And what I use is a threaded rod that's drilled and glued into the mantle and then into this backing here that you see. So make sure you don't miss this step if you have a solid wood mantle. Obviously, there's other insulation techniques, but this is the one that I found works the best, and I know it's not going to fall on somebody's baby or animal. Okay, guys, I backed up here, and you can see my little 2-foot level, the red level sitting there on top of another brace that I put up there, and that is for the TV hardware to hang on. Now, you can go as crazy with this blocking as you want, depending on how heavy the TV is, but I think I just doubled up some 2x4s there, and that was going to be enough for this particular TV. They're getting lighter and lighter by the year, obviously, and so don't skip that step as well. All right, next step, we're ready to go ahead and put the cladding on. And in this particular case, we're using shiplap. And I think I said 1/2 inch earlier, but this might have been, I don't know, it's like 5/8 or something. But they come in different sizes, thickness. But in any case, this was the first one I did that the homeowners wanted it going horizontal. Vertical. And normally would do it horizontally. But I guess, to each his own. And I think it turned out, it looks really nice actually. But what I had to do, because it was vertical, is I had to put blocking in not only the sidewalls of the bump out, but the front wall in those small parts there, so that I had something to nail the shiplap to. So you'll see those little blocks in there going horizontal. So that's what I did there. All right, friends, and here's a photo of about halfway through there. And if you're wondering what I put on the corners there, it was actually just like a corner trim, like a 90-degree corner trim. You could kind of trim it out whatever way you want, but I found that looks the nicest, and it's really easy. It's just going to fit in between the base and the trim up top, as you'll see in the end product. So that's kind of what it looks like there as you move through the project. And here is almost finished product here. Obviously, you got the trim to do up top and at the bottom. And here you're going to see my little girl I brought with me to work. I think it was the only day I ever brought her to work, but she wanted to earn some money, and so she got to learn how to cut miters and install base trim. So I want to say that was 4 or 5 inch MDF, or it might have been some base that I had from one of my spec homes. I can't remember, but it's around 5 inches. I think looks pretty good on these things, and just put it on the bottom and the top, and then your corner brackets, your corner trim. And that's pretty much it. All right, gang, and then here is a picture of it pretty much finished other than paint. I think it was even prepped here. You can see some sanding marks up top there. But, again, solid cedar mantle. I cut a hole. I usually cut a small hole that you can kind of fit your hand down through for the electronics, for the TV plug and things like that. We did, on this particular job, I did have an electrician come in and move an outlet so that we had one behind there. So you got to think about that as well if you need to move an outlet. And one thing I did miss at the beginning also is make sure you got to cut your baseboard to the width of this bump as well. You don't want you won't be able to fasten the sidewalls to the base, the bottom plate of the wall if your baseboard's still there, and it would sit wonky anyways. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, everyone, here is the final product. I typically don't let homeowners paint my work because I've just had too many bad results, but my client here was kind of a DIYer, and she had done some painting, and so I trusted her to do it, and I think it worked out great. And so there you have it. I really hope this helped you guys, and let me know, give me a comment if you liked it, if you didn't like it, what you think I can do better, and that really helped me out. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys build an awesome bump out for yourself. Take care.